everything.
Hey guys, this next video we're going to be interviewing Erik, who has a lot of cool information to share with us. He's going to talk about his first interview experience and how awful it went, which I found probably the best part of the interview. It's just funny to me. He's also going to talk about his experience in QA, doing development. He works at a gaming company, gaming being gambling, which is kind of interesting. We dive into that a little bit, and we just kind of shoot the shit about a lot of stuff that I think everyone would care about. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. It's an old one from about 2 months ago. I was moving, and so I apologize. Some people were looking forward to this, and I have a cold during it, so if I sound a little congested, that's why. But as always, guys, thanks for watching the video, and let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Hi, Derek. Thank you for being on the show. If you want to kind of just give a brief description of your channel so I don't butcher it, go ahead and kind of describe it for us, if you will.
Yeah. Hi. So my channel, my name is Erik Hanchet, and my channel is all about JavaScript frameworks. So it used to be just JavaScript frameworks, but I was talking about frameworks and all. So what I do in my channel is I do tutorials, kind of like your channel, but I focus mostly on a few frameworks that I really like, and that includes Ember.js and Aurelia. So, and then I'm also trying some new things out. I'm doing some interviews. I interviewed you a little while back. I'm also thinking of other kind of collaborations and different things I'm trying too. So I'm new to YouTube. I only started really a couple of months ago. I mean, I had this channel longer than that, but I've only got serious in the last couple of months. So I'm just trying to learn all about it and figure out how I can have fun and teach people how to program.
Nice. You named Ember and another framework. Any other frameworks that you're looking to expand to in the future?
Well, I did a little bit on React. So I'm looking at mostly these single page application frameworks that you probably heard of, the ones that they're more focused on, you load all the JavaScript in your browser and all the navigation, everything's done inside there, and it only goes back to the server for certain operations. So I've touched a little bit on React. I had one video on that. But it's mostly just Aurelia and Ember. And then I did a series of like JavaScript basics. So I did touch on a few topics, but that's for the most part is the ones I've been working on.
Speaking of the JavaScript basics, I did something similar and they didn't do very well. Did they work out for you? Just out of curiosity.
I haven't looked at the JavaScript. I only had 3 or 4 videos. Kind of what spurred that on was I was in my day job, my 9 to 5. I work on Java, which is not to be confused with JavaScript. And so really, I had always done a little bit of web development, but I never learned it really well until about 2 years ago when I just deep dived in. And I kind of did it a little bit backwards. A lot of people learn the basics of JavaScript first and learn that. I knew a little bit of the basics, but then I jumped right into one of these frameworks, which I don't necessarily recommend, but it kind of worked out for me. As for the views on those, I don't think they did tremendously well, but it was more for me.
Speaking of like the basics of JavaScript is, as you know, I do a lot of videos on Codecademy. They actually released a second JavaScript course recently. It's like in the official beta, I guess, and it's Introduction to JavaScript. Apparently, like their original JavaScript wasn't basic enough, I guess, and it came out. So it surprises me that they felt necessary to write a 5-hour course going more into the basics, while other, we do these basic videos. They don't do that well. I think maybe they might have spent some time making some content people didn't want, but
yeah, it could be.
What is the, I always am curious to hear, like, especially when channels are very early on, like our own, like, what is the end goal for your channel? What are you trying to, is there something you're trying to build up or like achieve by having a coding channel?
And that's a really good point. Yeah, anytime you start something like this, you kind of start it for fun, but it's always a good idea, like, what's your goal? What's the end goal? And definitely, so I mean, to go back one step further, before I started my YouTube channel, I was a blogger, and I still am a blogger. So I really got into the idea of teaching people how to program first on my blog. A little information about me: I'm a student as well as a full-time developer, and I went back to school, graduate school, to get my MBA. And in the MBA program, they had a personal branding class funny enough. And inside that class, I had always blogged. I started a blog, I don't know, 10 years ago on just like a personal blog, and I wrote in it a few times, and it didn't go anywhere. And then, so I really hadn't done anything until I took this class a couple of years ago, and it forced you every week to go in and create, at the beginning of the classes, 1 blog post a week, and then near the middle of the class, you had to do 2 blog posts, and then the end of the class, you had to do 3 blog posts a week. And then throughout the semester, they made you do videos. So they really pushed you towards doing videos on YouTube. They didn't really teach you anything about YouTube or any of the strategies that you're really familiar with on how to create thumbnails or how to create headlines or things like that. There's like, in the semester, we want you to do a number of videos, talk in front of the camera about the topic, about what your blog's about, and teach people. So that kind of really started off with me, the idea of like, wow, this could be something I want to do more often. And I just got way into that class. I was, on top of creating all these blog posts, I created more than my fair share of videos that I needed to do. I was going on Twitter every day, because the part of the class you had to create a LinkedIn, a Twitter account, a Facebook account if you didn't already have one. And they wanted you to promote your posts in all these different places. You had to tweet 3 or 4 times a day, funny enough. So I was like really into it. I was like tweeting and trying to, like, the people there's these famous programmers on Twitter and YouTube that kind of a lot of people know about. So I would like tweet them, and I try to get them to retweet my content. And it made me think, wow, this could be something interesting. And then I started listening to Pat Flynn with Smart Passive Income. And so it kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of not just teaching people, but also making an income from it. So after that class ended, I had a handful of videos, and I had a ton of blog posts. I continued on with the blogging, but I didn't do the videos as much. But I started experimenting with like affiliate deals. I signed up for being an Amazon affiliate. Then I started looking into Udemy, and like how I could create an online course. And then I was approached to, I won't get too much into this. This is another story for another time, but I got approached by a publisher, Pack Publishing, and I created my first book, which was really awesome at the time, called the Ember.js Cookbook. And I learned all about that process. But a little bit earlier this year, kind of fast forwarding, I found that I was getting a little bit tired of blogging. I mean, the time it takes to create a blog was, especially nowadays, the ways I did it was you would create this huge like 5,000 word tutorial with all the screenshots. You had to have the code up on GitHub. You had to put a demo up somewhere. So it was really grueling to put those up every week. And I was starting to do less and less of that. And I thought, you know what? I'm kind of getting burned out in blogging. How about I try YouTube? But I still kind of like this idea of where it's going. So then I kind of switched over to YouTube, and I did this thing called, and this also probably goes to where, how this all started. I started doing this thing called Vlog Every Day in April. It's a hashtag. There's some famous YouTubers that do it. I follow this one called Amy Schmidt-Hour that does it. So I started blogging every day in April, and my goal was, can I get like 1,000 views? And I was able to get 1,000 views. And I didn't vlog every day in April. I only created like 20 videos, but it was like, wow, I can create a video, editing, timing, everything in an hour, sometimes less. Well, it takes me like 2 hours, 3 hours to create a blog post. And so I jumped into Adobe Premiere and how to use it and how to edit it, and I really liked it. So that's what I've been kind of doing. Now the end goal, and to go back to your question, was I'd love to on top of doing the 9 to 5, I'd love to have a little side income and to be able to do this more than a hobby, I should say. Be able to create value for people that are listening to me, but also to create some money on the side, which is ultimately my goal.
Nice. Is there any reason that you decided to do content in web development and JavaScript instead of, because you're a Java developer? Is there any reason you're not focusing on Java?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about that because when I first started, I was like, well, I could just do Java tutorials. I mean, that's what I do in my work. But then I was just really interested, and I've always been really interested in web development. And I thought, well, out of all the jobs out there, yeah, there's definitely a ton of enterprise development jobs, but there's quite a few people looking for web development. I think that's where the future is. I'm looking at the new releases of Java and the stuff out there, and I just don't see as much stuff happening for good and bad on the JavaScript world side. I mean, every few months we hear about this new framework or this new technique, and things are moving so quickly.
Every day is more like it seems like, with these JavaScript frameworks.
In Java, yeah, things are happening in the Java side, but it's just not as quick. And it's just something that really interested in me.
Nice. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know we briefly talked about what you do at work, but you don't want to go into too many details. So kind of give us like a day in the life of a Java developer.
That's a good point. Yeah, so I have a combination of a few things I do at my work. And so I maintain this old legacy system, which a lot of times developers end up having to do this. You're going to go into a job and there's going to be code that has been written years ago and you have to maintain it. So literally the code that I work with is a combination of something called Transbasic, which is an offshoot of Basic, and Java and some C++. So we have several hundred customers that are running this software throughout the world. And they're literally, some of the pieces of that software was written in the early 80s. And it's just been ported over and over and over again to these different systems. So we'll have comments in there and things in there from people like 20 years ago. So it's crazy. But yeah, I maintain that software. So a lot of it is if support or somebody, if there's a problem at a customer site and there's an escalation, I'll have to take care of it there. And then, so I kind of 30%, 40% of my time is just dealing with that, making sure that system was working, making sure if there's any escalations. Luckily, we don't have any new enhancements for that because it's such an old system. The newer, and then probably the other 30, 40% of the time is dealt with working with this newer system that we've been slowly upgrading our customers for the last 6 or 7 years. It's written in, it's a Java application. It uses an application server called JBoss, and I think that the latest version is they have a newer application server, but most of it's in Java, JBoss and Tomcat, and so that's a lot more the traditional software development life cycle that you probably see in a lot of companies out there. So we have requirements documents, we have sprints, we have stand-up meetings. Sometimes we do. So
you guys are using like Atlassian Suite and doing Agile and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, more Agile. In fact, we've been trying to move more to Agile, but when I got there, it was more like very, the process was more like the Waterfall method, meaning we had a very strict set of requirements, a very strict set of testing and implementation. And then there wasn't much iteration going on. And a lot of that was due to the fact that in gaming, which is in gambling, not video games, the industry is really and highly regulated. And if you ever want to talk about gaming, slot machines, table games, I could talk to days about that because I'm pretty knowledgeable about it. But it's a highly regulated industry. So when code comes out of a company that works in the gaming industry, it has to go to these what are called gaming laboratories. And they check your code to make sure first that you're not doing anything funny in it, that you're not putting in backdoors for your friends for a slot machine to pay out more than it needs to. But they also just check the quality of the code. And that process takes months. So when we get a software done or finished or an enhancement for one of our products, it goes to these laboratories, and every jurisdiction out there has different rules for their gaming. So different things have to happen. And then it finally gets to the customer. So if they find a bug, when it gets back to the customer and they find a bug, we have to start that process all over again to get that bug fixed and get it back out to the gaming laboratory back out to the customer. So it's not quite as easy as in web development, where if you're in a live site and there's a bug, I mean, someone can go and fix it and get it deployed back to production in days.
Gotcha. That's interesting. A lot of people, especially when we're kind of starting out programming, I think there's this misconception that you're going to be creating something brand new. While a lot of the jobs are, hey, you may be doing that, but about half your time, you're upgrading the old system or maintaining the old system. And so I'm glad to hear, because that's how it is at my work. Or my old work. I just got a new job, but we maintain our old software and sometimes do feature updates. Meanwhile, the other team goes and is building the new SIS that the field will be using. It seems to be a common practice among software teams a lot of times.
Oh yeah, especially the new guys. If you go into a new team, yeah, don't expect you're going to be the architect and starting to design new programs or new enhancements. I mean, oftentimes they'll be like, we have this piece of crap that we've been maintaining for 20 years and Bob is doing it. And now you're going to be doing it. So you're going to learn exactly how to fix the patches and get it out the door.
That's what I think my new position is going to start out as is, you're going to just spend 3 months learning our old system so that you can do this tiny feature update or fix something that breaks when it happens.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it sounds. I mean, you learn a lot by just going in and learning these old systems and learning how it works and getting your feet wet. And if you're in a good organization that prides itself in its code quality, then you're going to have people looking over stuff that you put in, the bug fixes that you have, and you're going to be able to collaborate with them. And hopefully they have some way they're doing like continuous improvement processes and they're deploying and you have a test suite and you're running tests as well. So you'll learn a lot, especially the first few months. And so your previous job, were you able to do some of that then?
So my current job title, I as of Tuesday, not this coming Tuesday, but next Tuesday, I am moving to Florida for a web engineer position that I accepted.
Wow.
And so right now I work at a software company, but I don't write any code. That's the problem. And so like I asked to be promoted like 3 months ago. It didn't happen. And then I took a better position basically. I've done wireframing, I've done like user stories and user flow. I helped develop like the registration application that for our upcoming SIS. A lot of my job though revolved around creating content we have like 1,200 employees. And so just creating content so that the new employees understand how it works and updating features and getting requests and dealing with clients and stuff like that. It had a very like project manager feel job to it at times. So it ended up not being for me. Unfortunately, it couldn't work out where I was at, but
that's interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to get into the software industry. I mean, if being like a project management, a lot of developers some developers actually move over to project management. I know myself personally, after college, I had worked at a small company that I was doing a little bit of web development, but most of my time was writing code for this really proprietary a home automation system. And so I didn't learn a lot. I didn't get to use a lot of the stuff that I learned in college. But when I left that job, it was like in 2009 and the economy sucked. And I live in a town called Reno, Nevada, which is, you may have heard of it, hopefully good things. We actually have a small but good amount of software developers in our town. But at the time, the economy, especially Reno, was hit pretty hard and the job market was really bad. We had one of the highest unemployments in the nation, so I could not find a job. So I ended up taking a QA job doing quality assurance, which I don't see any problem if you're a software developer and you just want to get your foot in somewhere, or maybe you're not even a software developer. You've never worked there, maybe even trying to get into QA and trying to learn how it is, because you learn about like white box testing. You get to work really close. Hopefully in the organization, you get to work close with the developers. You're talking to them. And so I learned, I did that for 2 years, two and a half years almost, before I moved into doing Java development, what I've been doing now for quite a few years.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things, I think I'm kind of a good example of. I took a job at a software company to kind of learn a little bit more about Agile and anything else that could be thrown my way. And that in itself has helped me get my developer job. And so there's nothing wrong with project management or QA either, if that's the route you're going down to. I would have accepted like a project management position, because even if knowing software is valuable as a project manager. When you could say, look, stop bullshitting me. I know this isn't going to take a week to do, because you understand software and understand the environment. So project management's great as well. So it's very interesting, because I think a lot of people who are just learning out to code don't realize that this is another path you can take.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, yeah, there's more than one ways to go at it. You want to be careful though that you're doing like quality assurance and you're not just doing data processing, because there is some level. So like if you're going to a software company and you want to get your foot in the door and you can't land that software developer position, you could try QA and that could work out for you. It is going to be, I mean, caveat emptor though, if you get into a QA position, you're going to have to really show the people in your organization that you know how to code. You might have to do some networking. I know I had to talk to some managers in my other departments and get to know them a little bit better before I was able to transfer over to it. And it wasn't easy, at least in the organization I was in. But then you don't want to jump into like tech support or doing data entry. That's probably the hardest to move up out of, to get it from like being like a pure tech support on the phones, then move it into a software developer position. But yeah, there's other ways and other paths. Internships, of course, is a good way to go.
Now that we're kind of on this topic, what would be your piece of advice for people who are applying? They're just applying, can't seem to get that entry level, software gig. Do you have any sort of advice thinking back to when you got your first, opportunity? How you got your foot in the door, how you said, all right, cool, I'm finally here. I can finally start getting some relevant experience.
That's interesting. So you're asking how would I?
So if I'm the average guy, I've been studying up on front end development. Maybe I went to a boot camp or I'm just self-taught, and I'm trying to get a developer gig of some sort. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, well, first, it's going to be tough. I mean, this is a very competitive market, so there's a lot of people applying for positions to be a software developer. So you're competing you're competing against everybody that went to college and graduated with a computer science degree. You're also competing against people who graduated who didn't have a CS degree but thought to get into computers. You're competing against people that are coming out of boot camps. So you want to find ways to differentiate yourself from your competition. So, of course, having like something, either if you're applying over and over again, see if maybe look at the coding boot camp route. I know you and we've talked before, Dylan, your friends have gone to coding boot camps, and that seems to be a pretty solid thing. You may want to take some community college classes, at least get down some more basics that you want to do. Maybe education is the way to go. I think you and me disagree about going to college, but I think we both agree just learning more, either self-taught or taking classes, is a good deal. And then building up your GitHub profile, seeing if you can actually put in some projects that you've worked on in the past. And then if you're getting interviews, start studying for your interviews. So if you're getting interviews, write exactly all the questions you got asked, which ones you knew, which ones you didn't know, and then start using that as a basis. If you're going for jobs that are asking algorithm questions, then you may want to pick up cracking the coding interview. If you're applying for jobs and they're having you do take-home tests, then you need to look over the take-home tests that you've done and see why you didn't get it. Maybe ask a friend. Just continue to practice those over and over again. I know some people say to specialize, like try to find, like if you're in web development, be the best Ruby on Rails developer you can, or be the best JavaScript developer you can, like niche down to maybe just a framework, Ember JS or Angular, and learn that really, really, really well. So that way you may have some knowledge in that. Some people say to create, and all these different approaches may work for you, may not, but I've heard, try to create a personal brand. I talked earlier about creating a personal brand and starting to blog. You may want to try to create a blog or get on YouTube, start creating YouTube tutorials, see if you can get employers to come to you. I've definitely, since I started blogging and doing YouTube, I've had a lot more opportunities come my way. I'm pretty happy in my job, so I haven't taken up on any of them, but I've had those opportunities come my way because of where I am and how I put myself out there.
Also, I would argue just having any sort of relevant couple of years of software development experience, you could probably pick up a job relatively easily at this point.
Oh,
Especially,
yeah.
especially you say you're working on your MBA. Oh my
Mhm.
God, you're probably in like the top 5% of candidates most of the time. Uh, but
Well, yeah, I mean that's interesting too. I am working my MBA, so I have to make some decisions too coming up where I want to go in. But I'm pretty happy with my job right now, so far. Yeah, I was thinking more in the lines of because I've heard this before. I've had people tweet me and say I've watched because I write a lot about and talk a lot about Ember.js, and I've heard people tweet me and say, hey, I really want to get into a job as an Ember.js developer, but I live in Nairobi, Africa, and there's no jobs near me. What am I supposed to do? And I keep applying, and everywhere I go, I can't get a job. So, and usually these people don't have that much experience. So if you're trying to get the experience first off, then some of those techniques I talked about first will at least get you into the interview and hopefully get you that job. And then you can build up the couple years of experience, and then you can, in the software field, especially young people, there's a lot of people are moving around. A lot of people stay at a job only for a few years and then move around. So that could be one strategy.
yeah, I mean, at the job I'm leaving, I was there for 10 months, and I put myself in a position where I was willing to relocate even for, a nice pay bump, and the experience is more so what I'm looking for. So it's very interesting how you have to. There's this mindset sometimes that I went and got an education, coding boot camp degree, and I still can't get a job. It's like, well, one doesn't, you got a degree, now you get a job. No, you got a degree, now you got to work at getting the job. And it's a little rough sometimes, especially for people who aren't prepared for that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, to go to that point, when I graduated with my college degree, I told you I got a job doing software automation, writing in this very specific programming language. But I had quite a bit of journey because when I graduated college, I had a computer science degree, but I didn't know a lot of the stuff that employers were looking for. So this might go against my advice going to college. It did open some doors for me going to college, but some of the jobs I was applying for were looking for people that knew a lot more. So I struggled, like the first few job interviews right out of college. I just bombed. I went for a whole day interview at GE, General Electric, which they have an office near Reno where I'm at. And I remember going into the meeting, I knew they asked me a question, pretty easy, like find the highest number in a list or something like that. And I did pretty well during that part, but then they kept on changing the problem about the list, and I hadn't studied my linked lists. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, you went out for a second. We're good now, though.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know if I start Android, sending like a robot. Let me know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was this whole day interview. I was in one whiteboarding session after another whiteboarding session, and then they started getting in people from other departments, and they were quizzing me on classes I had taken like 2 years ago. They asked me a bunch of operating systems questions, which I sort of knew. And then I'll wrap the story up, but I went to lunch with them during this interview because it was a whole day interview, and literally everybody was talking around me, but no one was talking to me. So I'd be like, hey guys, how's it going? And they're like, oh, we're doing good, blah, 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 blah. So I could tell like that the interview was going terrible. And so, yeah, the point of that story was that even for people who have degrees, it's not a walk in the park to take that to a job.
It just,
yeah. Well, yeah, you can find me at my Twitter is ErikCH. It's ERIKCH, or you can go to my website, programwitheric.com.
all right.
And that has links to my YouTube and everything on there too.
Perfect.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Special thanks to our sponsor, Dev Mountain. Go to devmountain.com if you're interested in coding boot camps where housing is included in the tuition, so you can get up and go and not have to worry about where you're going to live. You can just go and immerse yourself fully in the experience, and check them out. And special thanks to you who support me on Patreon. If you want to make sure I keep putting out more content, Patreon's a great place to support me. But as always, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.